All right, today we're going to dive into one of the most incredible and, honestly, terrifying environmental stories of the last decade. We're talking about how a huge, modern city, Cape Town, came right to the edge of completely running out of water. And this isn't some story from the history books, this is a lesson for right now.
I mean, really, stop and think about that. What would you do if you turned on the faucet and nothing came out? No water for a shower, for coffee, for cooking? Well, for the 4 million people in Cape Town back in 2018, this wasn't just some thought experiment. It was a terrifying reality hurtling towards them, a moment they called Day Zero.
And just to be crystal clear, we're not talking about low water pressure or being asked to not water your lawn. No, day zero meant the city was literally going to turn off the taps. The plan was for everyone to line up at distribution points, probably under armed guard, just to collect a small daily ration of water. That was the future they were staring right in the face. So the big question is, how on earth does a world-class, thriving city get to this point? Let's break down how this crisis happened. It's a story that unfolded in what felt like slow motion, and then all at once. You know, a lot of these stories start in the same place, the weather. The most basic, fundamental part of Cape Town's water system, the rain, it just stopped coming.
And the thing is, this wasn't a sudden disaster like an earthquake. It was a slow burn crisis. Scientists call it a meteorological drought, which is really just a fancy way of saying it didn't rain nearly enough for several years in a row.
And you can see the problem right here on this chart. It lays it all out. Year after year after year, the rainfall was way below average. The city's main water source, these big reservoirs that rely on rain, they were basically being starved. The best way to think about it is like a bank account. Rain is your paycheck, and every time someone turns on a tap or a farmer waters their fields, that's a withdrawal. Well, Cape Town was spending way more water than it was getting. They were draining their savings, the water in the dams, and that bank account was getting dangerously close to zero. Okay, so a lack of rain is one thing. That's nature. But that's not the whole story, not even close. What turned a really bad drought into a full-blown, city-ending catastrophe? Well, that part of the story is all about us. It's about human decisions. See, the city had basically put all its eggs in one basket. Its entire water supply depended on a handful of dams that fill up with rainwater. And at the same time, the population was booming, so demand was just skyrocketing. But there was no real plan B. Very little money was put into other options like desalination plants or water recycling. The whole system just had no backup plan. And this is what happens next. The water levels in those dams dropped below 20%. That's not just an emergency, that's a code red. We're past the point of just a lack of rain now. This is a hydrological drought. The water is physically almost gone. And that's when the day zero countdown clock really started ticking, loud and clear for everyone to hear. But this is where the story takes a turn. Right when it seemed like all hope was lost, the city and its people did something incredible. They fought back. And this wasn't about just hoping for rain, this was about taking immediate, drastic action. 50 liters. This number became the most important number in the entire city. It was the strict, non-negotiable limit of water per person per day, and that was for everything. Drinking, cooking, washing, you name it. To put that into perspective for you, a single quick 5-minute shower can use more than 60 liters. So, yeah, it was intense. And the amazing thing is people actually did it. This wasn't just a government rule that people ignored. It became a massive, collective, city-wide effort. You had neighbors sharing water-saving tips, restaurants changing their menus. A whole culture of extreme conservation just took over the city. So the game plan was pretty straightforward. Set hard limits, get everybody on board, and then just watch that water usage drop. And wow, did it work. The city cut its water consumption by more than half, which is just staggering. Every single drop they saved bought them more time, pushing that dreaded day zero date back week by week until the crisis finally started to ease. So why are we talking about this? Because this isn't just a story about Cape Town. It's a wake-up call for literally every major city on Earth. It's a perfect case study of what happens when climate change, population growth, and aging infrastructure all collide. This whole ordeal really highlights just how vulnerable our modern cities are. Most of us depend on these massive centralized systems for our water. If one part of that system fails, it can impact millions of people almost instantly. A high density of people puts a huge constant strain on those resources. But the good news is, Cape Town basically wrote a playbook for the rest of the world, and the lessons are pretty clear. First, you can't rely on just one source of water. You have to diversify. Second, you've got to be way smarter about managing the water you do have. And maybe the biggest lesson of all, you have to accept that our climate is getting more extreme and unpredictable. That's the new normal, and cities have to start planning for it. So, when you boil it all down, here's the main takeaway. The weather created a bad situation, for sure, but it was human choices about city planning, about investment, about our own habits that turned it into a full-blown emergency. And that's actually the hopeful part of this story, because if our choices got us into this mess, it means that new, better choices can get us out.
And that leaves us with one last question to think about. All those factors that pushed Cape Town to the brink, climate change, growing cities, old infrastructure, those things are happening all over the world. So it's a question we all really need to start asking. Is your city ready?